Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and today we're doing another Women of Horror Spotlight. Today I have with us, she's an author, and she has a new book out right now that's called Whisper in the Dark. I have with us Elizabeth DeVecchi. Elizabeth, welcome to the Horror Room.
Thank you, Travis. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure having you on. And everyone, by the way, that's Kit Kat, my cat, meow. So Elizabeth, tell us a little bit about Whisper in the Dark.
So, Whisper in the Dark is kind of like a small town creature horror. I don't know if you would call it like a cozy horror, maybe, but it's one of those like slow character build, psychological type horrors. And I guess the theme would be the sacrifices we make for the people we love, and maybe the regrets we have about those sacrifices later in life.
Now, how long did it take you to come up with the idea and also get this book?
So the idea, it's funny because I've been putting off trying to write a novel forever with, kids and moving and all that. And I was walking my dog. We have a rescue dog named Dante, and I was walking him, and he suddenly, out of nowhere, decided that he was terrified of storm sewers. And he had never done it before, and I actually had to walk like an extra mile just to avoid every single storm sewer in the neighborhood. Mine do the same thing. But yeah, I don't know why he just suddenly, and so I started thinking, what could be in the storm sewer? And then the idea just kind of took off from there, and I thought, I got to write this. So I think it took around 6 months to write. And then I had already been submitting some short horror stories, lots of rejections, but they say you're supposed to get a certain number before I guess it's the induction into the Writers Club. But yeah, so I just started submitting, and I had a couple different people interested, and I'm with Wicked House Publishing, and I couldn't be happier.
Awesome. Now that's the hardest part, especially as a new indie author or indie author period, is, what publishing house do you go with? What small press do you go with? I mean, because there's so many out there now, but finding that one that fits you the best. Yes. I mean, that's a challenge.
Yes. And I bought like the indie publishers, across the US or whatever book, and every book. And I went online and I looked through as many as I could. I knew I wanted a traditional publisher simply because I'm not quite an empty nester, and thinking of all of the different aspects of making the book, doing that myself was not going to happen. So
yeah. And the other tough part is also marketing. I mean, if you decide to go the small press route, or even like if you decide to self-publish, I mean, you have to do all that marketing.
So I will admit, as a newbie, I was not quite prepared for that. I thought that writing the book was the hard part, and then after that, it's all easy. No, but I'm lucky because my oldest is in film. She graduated with a film degree, so she did my book trailer. My youngest is 15 and knows how to use Canva, and I did not. So I kind of incorporated everyone, like, you make my poster, you make my book trailer. So I figure they owe me.
Yes, because I mean, it definitely takes a lot of pieces, and I think a lot of new authors again, and they're like, "Oh, it's going to be this simple," but no, it's a lot of pieces, and you have to have that network and those individuals who have those specialties working with you.
And I will say the publisher was really good about that. He gave me a heads up on things to do to start kind of networking before the book came out, and I'm new to my area too. I've only lived here for 2 years. We move a lot. So I didn't know that, you need the community support too. So I joined, now I'm in 6 book clubs. Originally I was in 4, but since I was nudging them to start some horror book clubs, I kind of had to join them once they did. So now I'm in 6 book clubs, and they're so supportive, right? Because they know you. So.
And that's something also too, like, definitely having that network with other indie horror authors.
Yes. And the groups online too, that helps a lot.
So what got you into wanting to write horror short books and stories in general?
Yeah, well, I always was kind of a writer, even as a little kid, and I loved books. I would just get completely I don't know, I would disappear into a book. And I have a story when I was in 6th grade, Mrs. Kane, I don't think she's around anymore. If she sees this, she'll probably come yell at me again. But I used to hide books under my desk to keep reading them because I didn't want to stop. I wanted to know what happened next in the story. So I was in math class and I had the book under my desk, and there was a kid on a carousel and he was trying to grab the ring. And then suddenly I got an elbow in the ribs, and I realized that the teacher was screaming in my face because I wasn't paying attention, and I didn't even hear her. I was so into the book. So my friend had to nudge me to make me aware. So I've always been into books. And then I liked the Lois Duncan, like the, I don't know, teen horror, I guess. And then I wandered into my parents' furnace room and found the books that most likely were there so I wouldn't find them. And so I got Omen and Audrey Rose, Amityville Horror, Carrie, and they were all in the basement. And then I was hooked.
And because I mean, I love to hear when I hear, you know, someone that was always in the horror, you know, has a because there's so many indie horror writers who, like, I asked them that question, they're like, well, I wasn't always in the horror. Is it something I fell into?
Well, I was kind of a scaredy cat as a kid, but I think after reading the books through, and I will admit, after Jaws, I would no longer jump off our little sailboat and swim in the ocean. That was over.
Yeah.
But it kind of, I found as a kid, as a very shy child and kind of a scaredy cat, it gives you power almost to get through the book, and you're still there. So I kind of found that the more I read, the more I felt like, oh, I can take this. And then there was a Laotian refugee who was living with us. His name is Dan. He's the most awesome guy, has the most incredible backstory. But he was supposed to take us to, I think it was Herbie and the Love Bug or something at the drive-in. Well, you know, at the drive-in, there's like screen number 1 and then there's screen number 2. Well, he veered over to screen number 2, and I was trying to remember what the name of the movie was, and I finally figured it out with our local bookstore with one of the people there, and it was Magic. And have you seen that? It had Anthony Hopkins and it had Ventriloquist Dummy. And it terrified the heck out of me. And then I realized when I looked it up online, I was 8 years old when I saw that movie. So it definitely was not for me. But it built up my courage to like, oh, I can see it. And we saw The Fog and at the drive-in, same guy. I don't remember what we were supposed to be seeing that time. And it was foggy and we're outside the car, and it just kind of built up I don't know if it's desensitized me to the point where I could take it, but I did find it kind of powerful to, you know, get through the book, and I'm still here. And I don't know, in real life, things are much less scary than some of those books. So
now as a horror writer, do you sometimes, or I said, do you all the time, do you put things that you're fearful in your books?
Yes. I mean, there are some lines I don't cross. So when I was younger, if you'd asked me what scares you, I don't know why, but I had an irrational fear of alligators and tornadoes. But we lived in Rhode Island. There are no alligators, there are no tornadoes. But I don't, you know, kids have irrational fears. So I was afraid of that. So now I'm more afraid of things that can happen to my kids. So like yes, my book does have a middle school age kid and stuff happens to him, but there are some things that scare me so much that I probably wouldn't write them even.
Yeah, because I'm terrified of, so there's two things that I'm terrified of. I'm terrified of heights, and I'm terrified of Baltimore rats. Not just any kind of rats, Baltimore rats, because Baltimore rats are bigger than New York rats. They're like cat size. Yeah,
I lived in Torino, Italy, across from the Fiat plant. And I used to have to get up. You had to fight for your seat at the university there. You'd be sitting on the floor for the whole day. So I got up at like crack of dawn. I'm at the bus stop in front of the Fiat. And that's like, you know, a big, huge plant. And so it was pouring rain. So everything's coming up from the sewers. And I saw something run by and I was like, oh, is that a cat? And the woman next to me was like, that was not a cat. That was a rat. Those things were huge. So I understand that. It probably helped that I was half asleep, but
yes, it does. Because I mean, even when I take my trash out at night, I'm like banging on stuff, this and that, because I'm like, I do not want to run across one of those bad.
No, and you're sounding. Yeah. You're like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to writing, do you already have an ending in mind, or is that something that you have to work toward?
I mean, I have an ending, but it can change. One of my biggest pet peeves is when I'm reading like this really great book and it's, just got me. And then it kind of feels like the author's like, I really need to end this book. And so they just hurry through the ending. And that it really bothers me because I'm like, really? I love this book. And then you just like the end, it's done. So I tend to about midway through my writing process, I'll write the ending. So I'll write out this really, as much as I can, thought out ending, and then it'll probably change because, your characters lead you sometimes to places you weren't expecting, but at least I have something that's fleshed out. So that's usually how I do it.
Now, how many times did the ending change with Whisper in the Dark?
It only really changed once, and I don't want to give anything away, but I was kind of writing, and one of the characters who I'd originally planned to being a totally background character, not much at all, kind of did something that I wasn't expecting in my head, and I went with it, so I did have to change the ending, but I think I really only changed it that once.
Now, you told me you've always been, kind of a horror fan.
Yes.
Who are some horror authors that you've gotten inspiration from?
So again, I started with teen authors like Lois Duncan, Stranger with My Face, I Know What You Did Last Summer, the book, much better than the movie, Killing Mr. Griffin, Third Eye. And when we did our 8th grade field trip to Washington, D.C., because I think most of the East Coast does that at some point. And my mission was to go to the Library of Congress and look up every Lois Duncan book and read them all. Like, that was the one thing I wanted to do in Washington, D.C. So then I like, Stephen King and Dean Koontz, I think probably the usual suspects. But now that I'm in the indie groups, I'm finding a whole bunch of new, fresh ideas and fresh books that I'm loving. So
now, this is your personal opinion. Why do you think it's so hard for filmmakers to transition the novel effectively into the movie?
I don't know. I'll have to ask my daughter because I do want her to make my book into a film. I don't know. And actually, even with the book trailer, I didn't want to, because I write, I don't do film. I like watching movies. I completely left it up to her, but that's because she's also my daughter. So I think with a stranger, handing your book over would be a lot harder. Especially if they go a direction that you were not expecting. But like with I Know What You Did Last Summer, I just couldn't even see why they went the direction they did, because they could have stuck with the book and they would have had a fantastic movie, in my opinion. But
I agree. I mean, even like with some, you brought up Stephen King, even some of the Stephen King books, like it's like you go watch the movie, and a lot of the movies are great, but like why wouldn't you just stick with the source material of the book, and it would have been so much better? I mean, it's already something, you already have something great in front of you. Why not just put that into
maybe it's like the feeling of power, like I have to make this mine because I'm the director. I don't know, but I'll make sure to ask my daughter what she thinks about that. Mm-hmm.
Now when it comes to the status of indie horror right now, listen, there's so, like you were saying, there's so much content out there. There's so many authors, which is a great thing. Do you think that's going to be an issue down the road, especially when I'm hearing, a lot of indie horror authors are using AI? Do you think that we're going to be running into some future issues down the road?
I mean, I think AI is an issue in and of itself. I was actually listening to someone who told me that, I mean, he doesn't use AI to write his books, but he used it to translate his books into other languages. And to me, so I'm also Italian, and if I read a book that's in Italian by an Italian author, it's different than if I read a book in Italian that was translated by, say, an American who knows Italian, because they write, it's a different feeling when they write. So I can't see AI getting that, because it maybe, it translates it perfectly, but let's say I wouldn't say that same phrase to get the same reaction in that language. So that to me was problematic. And I don't know, AI in general, I find problematic. I mean, I would, I use, what is it, the one that you can look for spelling errors, or
Yes.
I don't use it grammatically, but I can use it because there are some things like you look at your book so many times, and I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so I don't want to even send it to the editor before I completely make sure there's like no spelling. But something like though and through, it's supposed to say through. So when you're reading it, your brain sees through, even though it says though. So things like the little red squiggly line will help pick that up. But that is the only extent that I would use anything like that. So, and that's just because, and I know the editor is going to find it anyway, but I just feel, I don't know, I feel that. And the one thing I will never use again is find all, correct all. I learned that lesson, and I almost submitted it too. So I had, the names of my characters were too similar. Ben and Bill, which can mess you up and get you confused while you're writing. So I decided to change Bill, who is a secondary character, to Greg. Okay, find out, change him to Greg. It does not work that way. So I had one of the characters was paying her Gregs instead of her bills, and then the curtains were Gregoing in the wind, and I was like, oh my gosh, and I almost submitted that. So that I will never do again. I will go each time and look at the red squiggly line and make sure it's correct. But
True.
Lesson learned.
Exactly. I actually read an AI Idiot Horror book recently, and I was telling somebody, it was like, it just seems like, I don't know how to explain it, but it seems like an AI wrote this book. Like, it didn't sound personal, the human element or the human feeling from it was missing.
Well, and actually, I just wrote an AI a horror short, which I think may have been accepted, or I was told that the person really liked it, so we'll see. But it was something similar where they were farming talent off of people to use it to feed to the AI. But even if you feed actual talent from people, unless you're gonna, copy them word for word or whatever, it's still a mashup and it's still not personal. So no, I'm not a fan.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and this is a controversial question, kind of what I was saying. There's so many indie authors out right now. I mean, anybody can pretty much get your work out, especially if you want to do self-publishing.
Yes.
Do you think that's a good thing, or do you think there still needs to be some type of gatekeeper or filter?
I don't. Well, but that's hard, because then who's the gatekeeper? Sure. That's the problem, because no matter who you pick, it's subjective. So I actually see it as a good thing, because once you read one book, you're going to read another book. It's not like you'll keep reading them. It's not like a refrigerator, right? Where you've got it there for, well, now they last 3 years. They used to last longer, but it's not like I have to keep using the same refrigerator because I bought it. Once you read one book, you're going to want to read another book and another book and another book. So I kind of try to look at it that way. And I know there's a lot of anthologies too, and I actually think those are a good segue to finding new authors. I was in, and actually, I think I have it. I went to Necromonicon this summer, and I'm in Monsters in the Mills. And so the way we were pitching it was, when people would walk by, it's like the beer flight of authors, right? You try a little bit of each author, and then, hey, I like this author, and you're probably going to go look for a book. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. You do kind of have to weed through some stuff, but who am I to judge what's what? So,
but this is coming from somebody who's a horror reader.
Mm-hmm.
Using an editor is so important, because I read a lot of self-published stuff. I've said this myself too, the self-published stuff, and it just doesn't flow right. It's confusing. It's like, okay, and I can imagine as an author, you're thinking in your head, this is how the story is going, but as a reader, there's big pieces missing. I'm like, did I miss something?
Yes.
And I think that's why you need a second eyes.
Yeah, not even a second, like third, fourth. Like I send out to beta readers. I have people who read my stuff initially, and that's my question. Is there anything you don't understand? Is there anything I need to clarify? Is this clear that this is where it's going? And I'll ask that first before I re-edit it 50 million times again, and then send it to the developmental editor, and then, for grammar and spelling, or because no matter how many times you look at it, and that's why as an author, I think it's, you can catch more stuff if you set it aside and do something else for a few months, because you're looking at it with fresh eyes. But I don't care how many times I look at stuff, there's always something that slips by. And that's like with the book coming out. The book actually gets released on Friday. With the book coming out, I know there's going to probably be a typo in there. And believe me, it is driving me absolutely crazy. But I also know that I did my very best to make sure there wouldn't be. So, we're only human.
Yeah. Exactly. And yes, and like you say, multiple eyes on it, because it definitely helps, because you're definitely going to miss something. With my YouTube channel, I misspell titles all the time, and I'm like, oh crap, and I go back and I have to fix them, and it's just, you got to keep looking over stuff, because
and I was putting out, doing the ad or some kind of ad or something, and thank you, red squiggly line, a whisper in the dark. You type really fast, and the S and the P keep getting mixed up, and I don't want to put a whisper in the dark. I want to put a whisper in the dark. So even the little stuff, you got to check 50 times. So
it does. Mm-hmm. All right. Elizabeth, so this is, as you know, this is a horror channel, so I'm going to ask you 3 random horror questions. This is your personal opinion, okay?
Okay.
All right. If you could be any horror monster, who would it be?
If I could be the monster, if I were a monster, I'd probably mess with people psychologically. I wouldn't be, the monster with the big claws that comes out and murders everyone. I would be like the ghost whispering in your head and trying to mess with you and make you do things maybe you don't want to do, or I think I would want to be that kind of monster. So I don't know. Is there like a classic monster that does that? I don't know, but I want to be that invisible monster that gets in your head.
Yeah, you can do that with ghosts. You can do that with like possession, demons, and so forth. Those are definitely things that you can almost drive a person crazy. Being
exactly like Little Whisper. Yes. Mine is a creature. Like he is an actual flesh and blood creature. She, sorry, is a creature. But if it were me, I would rather be invisible.
Awesome. Now, the second question is, what is one horror movie that everybody loves that you don't see it? It's okay, but I don't understand why people love it so much.
That's hard, because I kind of like the goofy ones too sometimes, like Abigail and what was it, Ready or Not, things like that, where they're just so completely insane. I don't really like the ones that they do a million times. I don't know, Friday the 13th. So what was it, Final Destination? The first one was okay, but then let it go, move on to something else. I don't see it when they're repeating the same movie a million times. And now, sadly, a lot of movies are ruined for me because I do have a filmmaker daughter. So she's sitting next to me. I'm enjoying the movie. And she said, well, they shouldn't have done that angle, or that, that color is wrong. I'm like, would you stop? I'm trying to enjoy the movie. But so now there's a lot of movies that I can't watch anymore, but with her at least.
Ruined it for you.
Ruined it completely.
All right. The final question is, what was the first horror movie that really made you fall in love with horror?
Oh, that's easy. So I was sick, and I'm totally going to date myself, but not as much as it's going to sound like at first. Really sick, and I had my little black and white TV that I won as a paper girl of the year or whatever. And I was flipping through UHF channels, and I found a movie called The Nanny. And I don't know if you've seen that with Betty Davis. And that just, it freaked me out to the point that I went and found the book, because there is a book, The Nanny, though I think they may have written it after the movie. And then not that long ago, I went on every website I could find, and I found the DVD for The Nanny, and I have it. So yeah, that, and there was another one with Mark Lester Oliver from the musical. He was in a
Yes,
scary '60s movie, and I'm a '70s baby. I'm not a '60s, but he was in a movie called Eyewitness. That one was really scary too.
I didn't see that one. I'm writing this down on my list.
Yes, Eyewitness. So I think it has like they changed the title at some point or something, but it's Eyewitness. And it what was the one with the kid from ET where he has his imaginary friend and he sees a murder and he's got the video game with the thing. I can't remember. Dabney Coleman was the imaginary friend, but that was kind of based off the same idea, but Americanized and made for children. This one, like, there's death. In Eyewitness, there is death. So in the other movie, it's close, but not quite. So yeah, those two movies really caught my attention and probably still live in my mind. So
I gotta check it out. I gotta check that out.
mhm.
And it's crazy. Like that first movie that makes you feel that falls in love, or even scares the crap out of you as a
Yes.
kid. It always sticks with you for the rest of your life.
Oh yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Magic also stuck with me, but on a different level. And
No.
it's like with I do not like ventriloquist dummies. And my middle child, he makes puppets, so the puppets have to. The puppets stay in their own little room because I'll turn around and they'll be like, looking at me or something. But yeah, not a fan of dummies, probably because of that 8-year-old experience.
All right. So Elizabeth, where can everyone find you and your book?
Okay, so my book's on Amazon, or also if you go to Wicked House Publishing, their socials, their websites, and less the websites, more like Facebook pages. I think they're Instagram too, and then ElizabethDebicki.com. You can find also anthologies that I've been in. So I mean, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Listen, everybody, go to Amazon and grab your copy of Whisper in the Dark. And also follow Elizabeth and check out some of her other anthologies as well. Elizabeth, it's been a blast having you on.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it too. Thanks.
All right, everyone. Well, listen, thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and that is Elizabeth Debicki. We'll see you next time. Take care.